So, in light of recent events and with the whole coronavirus and COVID 19 thing going around, I have been cooped up at home, trying to do my best not to go out into public. So, I've been trying to find things to do around the house, done a lot of cleaning, done a lot of trying not to go insane, and a lot of hanging out with my baby. So that's pretty cool. I can't really complain too much, but it's still a little rough sitting around the house when I try and actually have an active lifestyle. But I got a little bit nostalgic and decided I'd play some of the games that I used to have when I was younger, like the old Game Boy games, Nintendo 64, things like that. And I decided I'd like to make a top 10 list, something that just kind of remember how things used to be. I don't know. I pulled out a couple of the games and I was remembering all kinds of stuff with my cousins and friends, having video game hangout nights and Blockbuster Video and all that stuff. I just figured I'd bring up a couple of good and maybe irritating memories. But without further ado, here's the dude's top 10 list of Nintendo 64 games, I guess. So number 10 would probably be Donkey Kong 64. Now, this wasn't really my favorite of all the games, but I've always been a Donkey Kong fan. The little side scroller game where you jump on the rhino, who, of course, that was my favorite. I love the rhino. But you jump on it, or the ostrich, you collect all the little things, or just running across, throw the barrel, and that explosion sound. It was like everything about Donkey Kong was awesome. And one of my favorite things and the most memorable thing that I could come up with for 64, without going into too much detail, is the very first opening scene. Now, it's not a very big thing, but it starts out in the same camera position as how it was on the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo, where you're about to do a side scroller running across the game. Um, but then you get to actually start taking control of the character, and it's 3D. You control it from the front and the back as opposed to just running side to side. So already your mind is blown into oblivion because of this little this little teeny tiny incremental thing. So I don't know, the whole 3D aspect of Nintendo 64 when I first got my hands on one was just mind blowing. It was probably the best experience. So I had to throw Donkey Kong on here just because he needs to be here. And I'm a huge Rare fan, as you're probably going to notice. The next one, another Rare game, is Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, that was one of those games. It was actually, I think, the first game where me and my friends would have to kind of hide it from the parents. A lot of suggestive themes in Conker's Bad Fur Day, a lot of funny stuff. I mean, it was one of those things where you have to kind of play it off because me in what 2000 2001 when it came out, it was a big thing when mom would walk into the room and I'd have to stop and say, "Oh yeah, it's just me doing flips. I'm a squirrel. I gotta collect some nuts and this and stuff." If you actually go into the details, like the most memorable situation for me is the turd fight, where you fight a giant turd who, if I recall correctly, sings to you while you're fighting him. I don't know. It was just really crude. I want to say like a British sort of humor, but it was one of my all-time favorite adult games. I think the next one that came after that was probably Vice City. That was the next one that you had to hide from the parents. The Gonna go down to number 8. Um, Doom 64. Now, Doom was phenomenal. Every Doom is phenomenal. Even the ones, and I'm huge on lore, which I'm probably going to have a Doom episode where I just give my thoughts and opinions on the lore of Doom and the three different sagas, I guess you could call them, but they all kind of intertwine in the newest, but whatever. There's a lot to go into there, but I think one of my biggest things with Doom is just the same feeling, that uncomfortable everything. It feels like the end of the world. You're tense, gripped up. You have the full sound system going in your cousin Nick's house because he just lived in what I think was the chicken coop at one time, but they converted it into a bedroom. and he has an entire sound system dedicated to just playing Doom. And that when I finally got to when he let me play it, that was the most terrifying game for I don't know. Like I said, it was about 19 years ago, so uh, when I was younger, it was an adrenaline rush for sure. But I just love the idea of the BFG and that one gun that's more powerful than the BFG. You have to upgrade it while you're playing, but just the bad guys, the guns, the dark rooms, everything. I am a huge horror game fan, so that one really, it really struck a nerve in the memory banks. um, but I think it's a good 8 spot. It's not really one of my favorites, but it's pretty darn close, and it's just a good all around game. Next, number 7. Now, I'm going to have to go, and I'm pretty sure everyone had put this higher on their list, but the reason I'm putting it a little bit later on the list is because I didn't own the game. I had to be very decisive when I was asking the parents for games. um, so I couldn't think of a good enough fight for a little dude with a sword, but uh, well, without further ado, number 7 is Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. Phenomenal game. A couple terrifying scenes in there as well. I mean, not really now, but if you go back and play it, you still get the like kind of like tense grip playing the Nintendo 64. It's just a rough just situation. But then you get like all the different levels and experiences. Zelda's going to be another one that I have an entire episode just dedicated to talking about because I mean Zelda, the first game I ever purchased on my own, or not on my own, but my very first game I ever owned myself was Zelda Link's Awakening for Game Boy, and that was just I remember almost every little bit of that game up until right now. I mean, I could probably start the game fresh without having touched it since I got my first Game Boy Color, and I could probably get about halfway through the game and then towards the end without even having to like remember any of the text or anything. Which I'll do a playthrough of that as well. The whole idea of Zelda is just fantastic, but I love the game. It's just it's a little higher on the list. Like I said, I didn't own it. I had to borrow it from friends or Blockbuster, which Blockbuster is going to come up in a few seconds or a few minutes. But yeah, so number 6. Now, this was a tough one. It was kind of a battle between 6 and 5, but number 6 is going to be Pokemon Stadium. Now, I'm not going to get into Pokemon Stadium 2 just because I didn't play it as much. Not because I wasn't into it. I don't know. I liked Pokemon Stadium 1 because it had the shock value and it had all the feeling and all the surprise of something you've never experienced before. um, for one, everyone felt the same way I did when you got to see your first 3D projected perfect, just a Pikachu jumps out or a Mew. I mean, I had to use the cheat to get Mew. Everyone did. You needed to get it, and it's easy to get. But the first time you see the 3D, my favorite Pokemon, Sandslash, threw that bad boy out, I felt like getting up and like giving an applause for it just because I got to see the thing doing its little dance and it like shoots its little things forward and little pincer claw things. But I was such a big fan of it, and I wasn't even just a big fan because of the gameplay. The actual battles were a pain in the butt. And once you get to like the Master League and then you fight the gym leaders, it's such a pain. And it's really annoying with that stupid Clefable thing where she goes, dee, 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 and you can never do it. You guess half of it. No one ever remembers the whole stupid side game. But I love the one where you're Sandshrew and you get to do the thing. But anyway, one of my favorite aspects to Pokemon Stadium wasn't even the stadium part, but the Game Boy connector that the Nintendo controller had so that you could play Pokemon Blue or Red on your Game Boy. And I just thought that was so cool. because you collect the Pokemon, you play through the story on the Game Boy, which is on your TV screen. So instead of being this big where you're trying to just find everything with your face right here up against the edge of it, you're actually looking at your TV. And I thought that was the coolest thing because I'd never seen anything transition like that before. And then you move them over to your group on Pokemon, and then you play them in 3D. So all the Pokemon that you got like connected to and started having fun with, and you beat Misty and Brock and get to the Giovanni fight, and then beat the Elite Four and all that. You get to play with them again in Stadium. It was such a cool thing. I loved it. All right, so number five. Now, this one just is more of a family, close knit, personal note to me. Number five is Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. Now, this isn't the best game, and if you go back and play it, it's a really hard game. It's extremely, extremely hard. But me and my cousins would meet up every chance we possibly got, and we would turn on this game, and like we would play it for hours, hours and hours and hours. And everyone had their specific character. Mine was Neva Key. He was in a reverse pod racer. Now, the reverse pod racer, it was faster than all the other ones, but it didn't turn worth the crap. So it was like driving a dragster up a I don't know, a Gymkhana or whatever it's called. But my cousin James, he loved Gleg Holdfast, I believe his name was. Um, he had probably the most roundabout perfect pod racer out of all of them, except for some of the cheat characters or like the final two characters you can get. My cousin Gladys, she was a big fan of this little duck thing called Dudbolt. Now, I like the little Neva Key guy because he had this really high pitched voice, and I never knew what he said, but it was like, and he had these big old rabbit ears. I don't know. I'll throw a picture in there of him. But Gladys' favorite was this little duck looking thing. It was called Dud Bolt, and it had this weird pod racer that looked like two. I don't know. I want to say like uh, cutting shears as the jet engines. I don't know. It was ridiculous. But I had a lot of fun playing that game. It was a hard game, but when you beat it, it felt like you beat a game. It felt like you really earned that win. Because without cheats, you had to try. You had to do it perfectly every time to win. Yeah, I really like that game. And so number four. Now this, 4, 3, 2, and 1, it was hard to put them in a specific order. So instead of going through and putting them in an order based off of which ones I like the best, I put in the ones that I put the most hours into. And when I say the most hours, I'm not talking about 20 or 30 hours. I'm talking like 400 to 600 hours worth of time spent playing these games. Now, number four is a couple hundred hours, Banjo-Tooie. Now, I'm gonna definitely have some Banjo-Kazooie episodes. Huge fan, probably as self-proclaimed biggest fan of Banjo-Kazooie franchise. Um, but I love this game. It wasn't just that the game was good; it was great. It was phenomenal. It was everything from the first game, plus the little extra things that you'd want to see, like different eggs or different jumps and a couple new moves. And then the bear and the bird split up. Banjo and Kazooie like separate. And that was so cool that you got to play as each one. I mean, Kazooie had no health, so it was difficult. But the things you got to do and the things that were made possible swapping from the first game to the second game and keeping that stop and swap thing going, which man, I cannot tell you how many of those hours I spent just trying to figure out stop and swap just for it to be kind of, I don't know, it was ruined for everybody, but it wasn't anyone's fault. It's just one of those things that kind of was left in the dust. But I know Rare did a lot of work to try and make it happen. But Banjo-Kazooie was just great. It was a huge, huge world. And the fact that you had to do so much all the levels connected. You had to finish the final level before you could go back to the first level just to find one jigsaw piece that you needed to get to the final boss. It was like there was a lot. All the levels separated perfectly. There was attributes from every level that added something to Banjo-Kazooie that hadn't been there, but you could just feel that they wanted to put it in. It was a very well-rounded game, and just all around, I am such a big fan. um, so number 3. Oh man, I love this one. Yoshi's Story. So one of my other first games that I got for Game Boy was Yoshi's Island. Now, I love the game. It's so good. The tense feeling you get when you lose Mario, the amount of times you need to play through a level to memorize how everything works and where it's at, turning into a helicopter and a submarine and all this other stuff, and the little diggy, I don't know, everything has Yoshi's head, but it's got like crab claws and things so you can dig through the dirt and all that. I don't know. I loved that game. That was such a fun game. And I forget the bad guy's name, but fighting that thing where you sink down into the sewers and then you stop and jump up and it goes da, 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 and then the wizard flies by and the little chomper plant thing falls in the water and it jumps up and then it goes and the little tentacles are popping up. That was a really cool little action scene I very fondly remember from that game as a kid. But all around, when Yoshi's Story came out, the story, it was a lot calmer of a feel. The music was softer. Everything had like a hand drawn tone to it, like the first one, but with more detail, of course. But the playthrough was so much fun. Unlocking the white and the black Yoshi was such an accomplishing feeling, and you could tell they were just a little bit better because they had the longer tongue, they had the higher jumps, and personally, I like the black Yoshi. He was my favorite because he had like a red shoes and he was just inverted color Yoshi. It was the coolest one. But everyone's got a favorite colored Yoshi. I know that. But Yoshi's Story, the last boss was fun. The first boss was fun. The story is a good one. It's not. There aren't a lot of words, obviously, but it's dinosaurs. And, you know, all the main thoughts are there. It's the same principle as all the other games. Just, I don't know. I liked it. I haven't played the Yoshi game that, or the new version that came out for Switch, but I definitely plan on playing it. But for in this countdown's case, Yoshi's Story takes number 3. It was just, I loved playing it, and I played so much of it. Oh my gosh! All right, number 2. Now this was an easy one. Pokemon Snap. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with how Pokemon Snap came to its popularity with the birth of the whole Pokemon franchise, but when Pokemon Snap came out, there were toys at Burger King, at McDonald's. They came out with special toys at Kmart, or Super Kmart, and then was it Blockbuster. I spent so much time at Blockbuster. I didn't even care if anyone was in line behind me, because the thing about Pokemon Snap wasn't just that you were playing a camera game, taking some pictures. It's that you earned this spot, this little trophy that was a small batch of hand-picked stickers of pictures that you took in the game. You take the pictures in the game, you rip that out of the Nintendo 64, you get in Mom's car, you tell her to get to Blockbuster Video as fast as physically possible, and then you print out your favorite pictures of the Pokemon that you took. And there was so much joy that I got out of doing that. I mean, it wasn't, the toys weren't as they weren't as advanced as they are now, but they were so much, I don't know, there was so much more to the imagination of Pokemon in general when it first came out. Like when the Game Boy games were a thing, because I mean, they were all 8-bit monsters, and you kind of had to look at the pictures from the cartoons and then put that on the face of this little strange-looking thing that clearly looks nothing like the actual version, but you get this mental attachment between the two, and then you don't care. It's just such a big, it's such a cool experience. Pokemon in general, it got my friends in trouble and myself. We're trading Pokemon cards at school. Um, Maybe selling a few. I don't remember. I can't divulge any of that information. But we were trading Pokemon cards. We're playing Pokemon. We're playing versus mode on Pokemon Red and Blue. We were talking about it all the time, pretending we were Pokemon or Pokemon Trainer. It was just our lives revolved around that dang thing for like, I don't know, 4 years. But Pokemon Snap in general was just such a great game. It was a solid platform. The story is you're a side character from one of the episodes. He's a photographer. You go off to an island and you have to take pictures for Professor Oak of these 56 or 57 Pokemon that are on the island, and you have to do it before, or you just have to do it. But finding your first or taking your first picture of the Pidgey flying in, you just remember it. It's not a good looking picture, but it flies in, it's awesome, and then you get the Doduo that jumps out, and as soon as you get that apple, you go back to that level and you throw that apple at the Doduo, knock him on his ass, and that's the best feeling in the world. Because that stupid Doduo was so hard to get a picture of the first time. And then from there, you get the pictures. You throw the Pokeball, or you throw the Pester Ball, or you play the flute, and you get the Vileplume to do a dance, or you get the Sandshrews to run. And then if you get 3 Sandshrews, then you get the Sandslash to pop out, and then you throw another one at the Graveler, and then you have to throw them at the Gravelers to get the. Yeah, there was more of these levels that just keep building, and it was such a cool and fun experience playing Pokemon Snap. I could go on to that game. If I started playing a new game, I will play it until I get every Pokemon photo, every signed photo, and the Mew photo. I'll be happy. But it's one of those games. If you have played it, then you know how much fun it is to play that game. Now the final game, everyone who knows me already knows what I'm going to pick. A Bug's Life is no, not a bug for me. Have you played A Bug's Life? I want to throw this in here before I tell you the number one. I have A Bug's Life for Nintendo 64, and this thing, Flick, throwing these stupid berries that never hit what you need it to. Everything kills you. He has this stupid, all right, and then you follow this dumb-looking flying thing around. I don't care about the movie anymore because of how bad the game was. But anyway, I wrote down A Bug's Life, and I just was upset with myself for even writing that down. I'll do my own review on that game just so you can see how awful of a game that is. Oh my goodness. There's some bad ones, but that one takes the cake. Whew. But without further ado, my number one favorite. Oh, wait, hold on. My number one favorite game ever for Nintendo 64 is Banjo-Kazooie. Oh, it's so cool. Look at this thing. Isn't that badass? It's got like a little puzzle piece. Banjo-Kazooie is my favorite game ever. I mean, not even just for Nintendo or PlayStation. It's just my favorite game. It was one of the first, big, expansive games that I played, and it just settled so deep inside of me. I love Banjo-Kazooie. There's never a time where I get on the game and I see a level or a thing that I don't want to do. The first level, or not even the first level, the practice area, Spiral Mountain. You run around the thing, you find all the mole holes, you jump in the water, you climb the tree, do your first flip, monsters spawn out. Everyone's got this annoying voice. Oh my God, I love it. And whew, yeah. I'm definitely gonna do a uh, a, a video about Banjo Kazooie. I'm just such a massive fan of the franchise, and the game. It really put my mind into the gaming culture, I think. Just the whole idea of that first playthrough that you do, those hard levels, trying to find all the new moves without looking at like a guide or anything like that. You're just trying to do it on your own. How they kind of force you to do it now, unless you go on YouTube, watch one guy who could beat the whole game with his hands behind his back. But before YouTube and all that, you just got Banjo Kazooie, and you played through it. You played through as hard as you could. You always got stuck on Rusty Bucket Bay, because that is the hardest level in the whole game to just get everything on. All the jigsaw pieces and all the notes in one shot. It's hard. It's very, very hard. But so much fun. Such a lot of good experience. It's such a well-designed game. Just the idea that you have it's such a strange character base too. A bear and a bird. The bird lives in the backpack. It's your standard save the princess sort of thing. His little sister Tootie gets kidnapped, and you have to go and learn these special kick, punch, bird attack moves in order to fight a witch who wants to use the little girl as a means to make the little girl ugly and make the witch beautiful, that kind of thing. And the story's funny. There's constant dry, perfect humor throughout the whole thing. The bird and the mole go at it nonstop. There's all kinds of weird little innuendos and jokes here and there, but all the characters are fun. There's a giant, like, metal shark you think is going to be this really difficult boss, and it turns out he's a good guy. He's just chained underwater, and you gotta like knock out some of his teeth because they hurt. But I just love this game. Everything about the game, every single level has a good soundtrack. It has a great like fixture to the level. There's some difficult stuff, but for the most part, everything settles in perfectly. And when they came out with Banjo-Tooie, it was the perfect sequel. You could see how some levels would have worked that were in Banjo-Kazooie if you put them in that worked in Banjo-Tooie if you put them in Banjo-Kazooie. Vice versa too. And I'll get into things about the whole nuts and bolts garbage. I know everyone else on the planet has complained about that game, but I'll get into it too. There's goods and bads about it, but I'm on the same page as everybody else. I despise it. But for the most part, the Rare development team that worked on Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, you could tell they put everything into those games, and they wanted to keep it going. You could tell they wanted to keep it going because the story never felt like it ended. Like, you beat the game, you got to the end where they're all sitting on the beach, and then Mumbo Jumbo pulls out these little cards, and he's showing stuff that you missed that's not in the game. And believe me, unless you cheat, it's not in the game. If you go back there and look, you can't get there in Wuzz's Cave. You can't get there in the Gobi's Valley. You can't get there. So the idea of these little secrets that just wanted you to figure out that stop and swap thing that Mumbo Jumbo was talking about, which I'll get into that too, but it was just, there was so much. I put probably 800 plus hours into Banjo-Kazooie, and not including Tooie. And then not only did I put the time into it on my Nintendo, but on other people's Nintendos, and then other people's Xboxes when they told me, I'm having trouble with this one level, I can't remember, and I'm like, I know exactly what level it is, it's Rusty Bucket Bay, and I'm gonna go fix it for you. And then I did. I did because I had so much of an understanding of that game, and not just quick playthroughs. I went and searched, I jumped up mountains, I tried to find like wall clips so I could jump out of the level and see if I could, I don't know, die by falling through the world or something. But I just, every aspect of that game, I loved it. I loved everything about Banjo-Tooie. Nuts and bolts. Even the Game Boy game, the one where Banjo Grunty's Revenge, I think it was called. That one was another good one. It wasn't the best, but it was a Game Boy game, and they did their best to give it like a 3D-ish kind of effect to it. So that was cool. But by far, I mean, just look at this little dude. He's so cool. He has so much detail, too. Look, let me see if I can focus on just him. Yeah, check that guy out. And then you got Kazooie playing a kazoo. Oh my god, that's hilarious. But look at this guy in his yellow shorts. I mean, even when I play Minecraft, I still always have to be this guy. If there's a texture pack or a skin pack for Banjo-Kazooie, I will use it. But with that aside, I'm going to go ahead and end this, but that was my top 10 list of Nintendo 64 games. I hope you enjoyed it. I plan on doing a PlayStation one, then I'll probably work into PC. PC is going to be really tough because I'm going to have to work in the older PC games like Windows 95, 98, and then XP, and then from there, the games that I got when I had Windows 7, and now games on Windows 10. There's a lot. So the PC one, it's going to be a more difficult or more challenging approach, but I think we'll just make a couple episodes and see how it works from there. But anyway, I hope you appreciated the video. If you liked it, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe. I don't post a lot, but I'm going to try and post more. I'm having a lot of fun getting back into the swing of making Dude You Should Play episodes, so I hope you guys stick with me on the journey, and make sure you're staying safe out there. With this whole coronavirus thing going around, I know there's a lot of humor and a lot of irritation that comes with the loss of toilet paper. I found some of my favorite memes on the internet based off of the current coronavirus, but make sure you're being careful. If you can, stay indoors. If you have to go to the store, make sure you wear some sort of face protection. Even if you cut up a shirt and make that into a mask, it's better than nothing. And no one's gonna judge you. If they do, who cares? You're a ninja right now. I mean, what's cooler than that? You're legally allowed to wear a mask inside, I don't know, the superstore. Just make sure you're not getting too close to people. 6 feet. Try and respect it. If you live with members of your household and they're stuck in the house too, and you know they're not sick, maybe you guys maybe you could be a little closer together, but don't be inviting all your friends over to hang out. Get on Skype, get on Yahoo, get on Teams chat, Discord, anything. Just, yeah, you can have fun at a distance. Just try and keep yourself entertained, and once again, thank you for watching, and you all have a fantastic day. I'm the Dude, and this is Dude You Should Play.